First, what I'd like to do is introduce our Mayor, Natasha Johnson. She's going to say a few words.
All right, good evening, everybody. I'm really pleased to see such a great turnout. We want to start by thanking you. Thank you for coming and being engaged and aware. We had quite the event with our Holy Fire, and we learned a lot in the Holy Fire. Most importantly, as the fire was still burning, what some of you may not know is that the collaboration of a lot of the agencies you will see tonight started planning for an event like this before the fire was even out. So this culmination and collaboration is quite impressive, but it's important because what we learned during the Holy Fire is that being prepared and getting the education out, but collaborating with every agency from the state, the federal level, the local level, down the city level, all the way down to the coordination with our school district. It's really important. So you'll hear all of that tonight. You'll hear some great information. The most important message, I think, as we have held these town halls that you hear, and from me as a resident that lives just behind this building in this district and in the affected areas as a high-risk area, what I want you to remember is that we really cannot become desensitized to what takes place. So recently we had some weather event and we weathered it. I think this term is going to become outdated, but we weathered it very well. And that is, you're going to get some explanation on why we weathered it very well. And you're going to see some options for when we're not expecting it, we could have a debris flow and quite the event. So I really want you to be ready, and I need you to heed the warnings. You're going to hear about get ready, when it's time to go, and go now. And that's the most important part. And please, from all of my colleagues on the City Council and from every agency you will hear tonight, they're going to tell you when we put those evacuations in order, it's for your safety, and those are not done lightly. We know that people are sometimes saying, well, why did you do that? I have to work, there's so many things that are affected, but your life is more important than any of that to us. So we're going to continue to make those calls, and we're going to continue to do the best because life safety is the most important part to us. So a lot of efforts went into tonight. I'm going to get out of the way. You're going to hear a lot of information. Please don't leave early. It's very important that you get all this information. And with that, I just want to thank all the agencies personally for your collaboration, all my colleagues from the other cities, my colleagues from the other districts. I see Mayor Pro Tem Manos just walked in. So really, this is really because we want you to have the information. So with that, thank you very much, and heed the warnings.
Now I'd like to introduce Supervisor Kevin Jeffries.
So good evening. You didn't come here tonight to listen to a politician speak very long, so I'll make it really quick. I want you to take this event that could unfold very seriously. This mountain range has seen a lot of interesting events, disasters occur over the years, from the 1959 Decker Fire, where we lost 6 or 7 firefighters, to the Holy Fire, where we had 172 fire engines here in our valley serving the community, protecting us, to the events that we could face today or tonight or months ahead and perhaps years ahead. The professionals that are going to give you advice tonight, they're going to give you the best advice they can, and recognize every ounce of advice is based on a prediction of the weather. And we've all watched the TV to try and figure out what the weather's going to be, and it's 50-50 if you're lucky. So what has changed? Prior to this fire and now this coming winter, when you had a rain event, your biggest decision was, do I wear a jacket? Do I take an umbrella? That has changed. That has changed dramatically. Your decisions now are, am I evacuating? Do I empty out my house before I go to work? Will I be able to get to my home when I leave work to come back? What am I going to do with my animals? What am I going to do with my family? Those are the decisions that you may face if we have measurable rain over a short period of time. That's how serious this can be. So please, as the mayor said, take these warnings very, very seriously and be prepared. So with that, thank you very much. Turn it back over to City Manager.
I'd like to introduce Fire Captain from CAL FIRE, Fernando Herrera. Can you please come up and give a translation for us? He's going to help us with this meeting tonight.
Good evening and welcome to the Holy Ready Community Meeting. I'm here along with other members of the Emergency Management Department to help translate for our Spanish-speaking audience. We will be located in the back of the auditorium. Once the meeting is over, we'll be happy to answer any questions you have. Buenas noches a todos ustedes. Bienvenidos a la Junta Comunitaria. Nosotros estaremos aquí para darles la información en español sobre todo lo que se va a platicar hoy en esta Junta Comunitaria. Vamos a estar a sus espaldas, por favor, vengan y hagan todas las preguntas que quieran. Vamos a estar aquí para ayudarles. Gracias. Thank you.
Thank you, Captain Herrera. As we all know, in August, the Holy Fire ravaged the hills in our community. While we were blessed not to lose any homes in that event, I wanted to basically tell the story when the fires were burning, and I know Mayor Johnson mentioned this, but I got one of the most important phone calls that I had gotten in a long time. And Supervisor Jeffries called, and literally the fires were a day old, and he said, we need to start planning for this winter. And this group of folks is an incredible group of professionals. There's one individual that I'd like to introduce who's done a lot of work behind the scenes, and that's Mr. Bruce Barton. And Bruce is with County Emergency Management Department. And in the other community meetings, Bruce has done this job. So I just want to say thank you, Bruce, and there's Bruce Barton. You need to get to know him. This meeting is being broadcast tonight live on Rivco Ready Facebook page and is being recorded so we can actually share it with the community. We'll share it on social media, we'll put it on our cable channel. So if you have neighbors that couldn't make it here tonight, please let them know that this information is going to be available throughout the whole winter. Also, we're sending out question cards in the audience. And so if you don't have one and you have a question, raise your hand. We'll make sure you get a question card. It's important you fill it out. We're going to try to get to as many questions as we can tonight. And so again, these are the question cards that we have for you. Lastly, the PowerPoint and materials from tonight will be available on the city's website and also on the Riverside County website at www.rivcoready.org/stormready. So if you miss anything or if you want to see the presentations again, that'll be available on our website. And I highly encourage you to let your neighbors know if they weren't able to make it tonight. To set the stage for tonight, we wanted to show you two really quick video clips. They're about 15 to 20 seconds each, but it kind of sets the stage for what we're going to be talking about tonight. The first one is the Herky Creek debris flow. And if you remember, we had the Cranston fire over in the Idlewild area a little bit before we had the Holy Fire. And there was a rainstorm that happened in up in August in the Cranston burn area, and the Herky Creek overflowed with debris. And so we have a quick little video, so I wanted to show you that. It kind of sets the stage for this. So that's the first clip. So play the first clip, please.
Mud flow from a minor bit of rain to a complete torrent of water and mud, taking down trees, taking out roads.
Couple things about that video. First, did you notice the blue sky? Second, did you notice that there was no water on the ground? that rain event happened 2 miles away up in the canyon. And it was just a few minutes of that heavy rain that caused that debris flood down there. So really important to understand when the rain is coming, you can step out your door, but you don't know what's happening a little further up the canyon. So that's why we're monitoring that, and we're going to help get the information out. So when we ask you to do something, it's based upon real information. But that's the first one that I wanted to show you. The second clip was in Santa Barbara County. And in Santa Barbara County, we all know what happened. And basically, we have some BBC footage from the Montecito fire. And I want you to watch this for a second. So please play that video. That car couldn't outrun that. So we can't outrun that. So understand when debris and water flow starts coming down, it's a force of nature, and it's a little bit different than anything that we've faced before, so please pay attention to that. So tonight we've got a panel of experts here. I'm going to introduce our first speaker. This person has been very instrumental in this effort over the last several months, and he has been a mainstay in Riverside County for the past 23 years. Mr. Jason Uli is the Riverside County Flood Control and Water Conservation District Director, and he is a registered civil engineer with a bachelor's degree and a master's in public administration. And he has done this for a long time, and I have a lot of respect for this man, so I'd like to introduce Mr. Jason Uli.
So good evening, and thank you for taking time out of your day. I know we all have families and other commitments, and attending something like this is sometimes a challenge. But this is very important, and as you heard before, part of the reason it's important is 22,000 acres of hillside and mountain burned. And this area hadn't burned for 40 to 70 years. And so when it burned, there was a lot of dry vegetation up there from the drought. It burned very hot, not only destroyed the vegetation, it turned part of the soil to ash, the top layers of the soil to ash, and then the layer right below that ash has been turned into this waxy, water-resistant layer. And what that basically means, at the end of the day, is that every canyon behind me that you see in red is capable of producing a life-threatening debris flow. And so what I'm going to do today is I'm going to try and summarize the work of over a dozen agencies and dozens of scientific and engineering experts to try and help you to understand what to expect this winter, help you to explain the studies that have been going on behind the scenes and what they're telling us, and then also to talk to you a little bit about what you guys need to be doing as homeowners to protect your home and protect your family. And so first, what is a debris flow? Well, in its simplest form, it's a very fast-moving, deadly landslide that's initiated by intense rainfall. And as Grant mentioned, these things move as fast as cars. You can't outrun them. If one of these things is coming, the only thing you can do is not be there when it arrives, which is why it's so important for you guys to please pay attention to the evacuation orders that are being issued by our sheriff and fire department. And the important thing to know about debris flows is it's not any type of rain that causes it. You need very intense rain. You need like thunderstorm kind of rain, that hard-hitting, high-intensity rainfall. That's why the storm we had 2 weeks ago, it just didn't get to the intensities that are capable of producing a debris flow. We were watching that storm very carefully. We were working very closely with the Weather Service, and it stayed below the levels of concern. If we keep having storms like that, we could get through this entire winter and not have any problems at all. However, if we start to get more intense rainfall, well, let me do one more point on this. Sorry, I skipped a slide. The other thing I want you to know about debris flows is they block everything. And so they will block and fill natural streams. They will block and fill our flood control infrastructure. They will block and fill culverts, little culverts and big ones like this. And so what that means is when the culvert like this gets blocked, that mud, the rock, the water, it comes up out of those channels and it starts moving through the communities. And so if you don't, one important point to take home from this is that what you think you know about drainage in your community will not apply if there's a debris flow, because it's going to start plugging all the usual ways the water wants to go, and it's going to find new paths forward. And so kind of going back to the rainfall, I said, you know, if we end up with storms like we saw earlier this year, we may not see anything. If we start to get a little more intense rainfall, we might start to see some localized mud flows like they saw in Corona earlier this year. They had a storm that had about a ½ inch an hour of rain, and it ended up putting about a foot of mud around a dozen homes and across the street. Now, that cost those homeowners a lot of money because they had to remove all that mud from their homes, and they had to clean the street, and the city had to come in and clean the street. It wasn't life-threatening, but it was definitely a major nuisance and very costly. If we get particularly intense rainfall, then we could absolutely have life-threatening debris flows out of some of these canyons. And the picture you saw from Cranston, it showed what happened 2 miles downstream from the mouth of the canyon. If you went up to the mouth of the canyon, what you would have saw were rocks the size of cars rolling out of that mountain onto the plains. Now in the Idlewild area, it's not that populated. That is not dangerous. If that happens here in Lake Elsinore, that would be absolutely deadly. And so we need to be paying very close attention to this, and if you're in one of the areas that have been identified as an area of concern, you need to make sure you have a plan and you need to start working on it now. The other thing I want to mention is we're spending a lot of time talking about debris flows, but debris flows aren't the only thing that happens after fires. There's mud flows. You're going to have ash coming out of the mountains, and you saw that ashy water in that video. You know, that stuff is icky and gooey. It sticks to everything. There's potential for rockfall. There's potential for landslides if slopes become saturated. And so anyone who's living along that mountain front is going to have to be particularly careful and attentive all winter long because of these secondary effects. And so now just a little bit about what's been going on behind the scenes to help protect our community. Whenever there's a fire of this magnitude, there is a whole set of agencies that initiate a response. And the first agency that initiates a response is what's called the U.S. Forest Service BEAR team, the Burn Area Emergency Response Team. We have a couple members of the BEAR team sitting over here. And so that's a group of scientists and engineers that go in and they characterize the fire. How bad was it? They then take that information and give it to the U.S. Geological Survey. U.S. Geological Survey builds models that tell us what's the size and magnitude of debris flows that might come out of these canyons. How likely is it for any given canyon to cause a debris flow? That information is then turned over to a CAL FIRE specialist team that starts walking through the communities. And if you're a property owner, there's 2 reports that you're going to want to read. One is this CAL FIRE report, which is on the Rivco Ready site. Because what that CAL FIRE report does is it identifies all the areas that they believe are likely to have problems this winter if we have debris flows. And so in that report, you'll see a bunch of dots and shapes. And if you zero in and look at it in detail, it starts talking about exactly where we expect the most likely areas for problems. And so this is the Robin Hood Estates area. You can see there's several polygons, several shapes here in red. Those are areas that they expect to have a potential for debris flow issues this winter. And the other good thing about this report is it doesn't only tell you where the issues are, it'll also talk a little bit about what you might want to do to protect yourself. And sometimes it'll say, do some things around your house. Other times it'll just simply say, you need to pay attention to the evacuation orders and evacuate. Since this report was completed, just on Halloween, we got a brand new report that came in from the California Geological Survey. So when the WERT team goes out, they're visually inspecting things, this CAL FIRE team. When the California Geological Survey goes out, they look at historical maps, they look at aerial photography, they look at the geography of the canyons, and they refine the work of the WERT team and come up with a better estimate of where those debris flows are likely to hit. And so what I've done here is basically overlaid the work of the CAL FIRE, the California Geological Survey on top of those WERT polygons. And so if you're a property owner, this is the other report you want to look at because this further clarifies where we're expecting to have problems this winter. The last thing the new report does is it also has a basically 500-yard buffer zone around the entire perimeter of the burn area. And what they're trying to show with that buffer zone is that even some of the smaller canyons can cause problems. You may not have the big, huge debris flows, but you could still have mud coming off them, you could still have increased runoff coming off them. If they're steeper canyons, there still could be rock fall. And so there's also this buffer area which says, if you're touching any of these polygons, you really need to be paying attention to what's going on. You need to have a plan for your home, you need to have a plan for your family, and to be honest with you, if you're adjacent to any of these, I would also recommend the same. And so this is just an example of what the actual final map looks like off of the California Geological Survey report that's on the Rivco Ready site. And if you look at it, most of the problem areas are along the burn front, but there are some areas where they show run out all the way down to the freeway. And I also want to let you know that all of the information that I just presented was considered and incorporated into the evacuation zones that were prepared by the fire and the sheriff's department. And those evacuation zones not only considered the information that was prepared by the scientists and the engineers, it included information that the police and fire have about their very intricate knowledge of your communities. So when they call those evacuation orders, just know that there's a reason they're doing that. I also want to make a point of saying that we're going to try to give you guys as much notice as we can of when we think a storm of sufficient magnitude is going to occur to warrant evacuations. But the reality is, weather's unpredictable. And it could be that we're looking at a smaller storm and all of a sudden it stalls out over the mountain and it starts dropping rain. And that rain might be sufficient to trigger a debris flow. So in some cases, we may only be able to give minutes, if any, warning. We're going to do the best that we can, but again, if you're in these areas of concern, you need to take personal responsibility for yourself, put together a plan, know what you're going to do. Now, there are also a number of projects going on throughout the communities to help protect the residents. These are just two major dams that the district has on Leech Canyon and McVicker Canyon in the city of Lake Elsinore. We're working on enhancing these dams to provide better protection for the community. We're excavating them out so there's more storage behind these dams so that the debris flows will stop ahead of the community. But the reality is, if we get a debris flow, it's going to fill up some of the capacity of the dam. And then we could get another debris flow. And then we could start to have issues. And so these projects we're working on are intended to reduce risk, but they may not eliminate risk. And so even if you're below these dams, you still need to pay attention to what's going on. And so lastly, just a couple things about what you should be doing as a private property owner. First off, it's a great time to think about winterizing your home, right? And so think about managing your trees and making sure your eaves are clear and all that. But if you're in an area where you're concerned about debris flows, the one thing you need to know is that you do not want to protect the perimeter of your property. You don't want to build a wall around the perimeter of your property, because the reality is these debris flows have a huge amount of power and they will just blow down that wall and go right through your home. What you want to do is work with your neighbors to create pass-through areas that try to direct the debris flow away from your house and through open spaces between your homes. And so that in the handouts you were given, there's a brochure that talks about how to do that. There's also a phone number that's on this slide and also in that brochure for the National Resource Conservation Service. They're willing to come out and talk to you about things you can do to help protect your property. And then lastly, our second and last point, everything that I've talked about is available on the Rivco Ready website. So all the reports I've talked about, all of the guides that I've talked about, if you go on that website, you can download them, read them for yourself. I recommend you do that. And closing point, flood insurance. Your homeowner's insurance policy does not cover flood damage, it does not cover mud damage, it does not cover debris damage. If you're in an area of concern, then you probably want to start thinking about getting flood insurance. You can talk to your insurance agent and they'll tell you what it's going to cost and what it'll cover, but it takes 30 days for that policy to take effect. And so if you wait until a big rainstorm is predicted, you probably waited too long. And so now's the time to start talking to your insurance agents about flood insurance. And so with that, I'd like to thank you for your time.
What I'd like to do now is introduce Mr. Alex Tardy. Alex is the warning coordinator, coordination meteorologist for the National Weather Service. He specializes in providing current atmospheric and climatic conditions as well as research information in support of decision makers. And every time we have a weather event, Alex has been amazing over the years. He's been on the phone with us. He helps us through in making some of these decisions. So again, I'd like to introduce Mr. Alex Tardy.
Thank you, and great information from Jason of the Flood Control District. Just so you know, National Weather Service is a federal agency. We're physically located in Rancho Bernardo. We cover all of San Bernardino County. We cover all of Riverside County, Orange County, and of course San Diego County, our home base area. So for this particular event, we've worked very closely with the U.S. Geological Survey, USGS, and also with the U.S. Forest Service in the state of California. And the information that they provided us is specifically what we use in terms of the rainfall rate in a particular storm, whether or not we're going to issue a warning or issue a watch. And I'm going to go over with you briefly here on what a watch and a warning is all about in particular. We also have handouts in the back of the room. So I know a lot of you stop by our booth so that you can get information on the science of a debris flow and also the messaging when it comes to watch and warning, because it can be confusing. We understand. And nowadays, when you have weather forecasts, you can go on Google and you can basically get 10 different weather forecasts all telling you something slightly different. So when it really comes down to it, we want everyone to be on the same page when it comes to a watch, a warning, and how those relate to your evacuation or your ability to get out of harm's way. So at the National Weather Service, everything that we do is public information. So weather.gov is our webpage. Hopefully you visited it. If not, please visit weather.gov. And there you'll find information on what the latest weather forecast is. And also, is there actually a watch out? Is there actually a warning out? So it's one-stop shopping, weather.gov, for that type of information. Particularly, and I know all of you have smartphones. When the National Weather Service issues a flash flood watch, that is the first clue that something big, something unusual is coming, and is coming to the holy fire burn scar, okay? So when you hear the word flash flood watch, I want you to be thinking like, okay, this is something unusual. This is time where I need to invoke my plan. I need to get more information. I need to decide, is now the time to evacuate? Is now the time to invoke that plan that we've been talking about for weeks since this fire occurred? Now, if and when it gets to the point of a flash flood warning, kind of like what Jason was saying, it's almost too late at that point. The flash flood warning means it's imminent. It's raining, and it doesn't matter if it's raining at your house. It's raining extremely hard over the burn scar, hard enough to cause a debris flow. That is the time where if you are already told to evacuate, you need to evacuate. So the warning is also the time where your phone is going to alert you. Wireless emergency alert. As soon as we send out a flash flood warning, your cell phone will go off if you're in that area, if you're in that polygon of that heavy rain in that warning message. So those are the two things I kind of want you to take home as the take-home message. The watch is, okay, something bad is happening in a couple days, maybe in a few hours, but not imminent. Imminent, right away, is the warning. And we've already taken into account the threshold of the rain. We monitor the mountain scar 24/7 using weather radar, using rain gauges. So we've already taken into account all the computer models, what the radar is showing, what's actually hitting the ground. And that's when we initiate the warning message. So two different beasts, but very important. You can get all the information from weather.gov San Diego. Now, if you're sitting home, whether you're paying attention to the weather or not, you might see something like this. You might see an emergency alert message on your TV, maybe on DirecTV, maybe on your local cable provider, but they all show it a little bit differently, but it's the same type of message. On your phone, it'll look like that on the right, okay? So those are the type of messages you definitely don't want to ignore, especially if you already know that you are potentially in harm's way, and especially if you know or end up finding out that you are in an evacuation order or evacuation warning area. So be familiar with those, please, because when it's pouring rain or when it's a weekend, Sunday evening, and you're watching a football game and not paying attention, something like that might pop up on your TV or on your phone. Now, when we actually issue a warning, we can draw the warning to the size or to the scope of where the impact is expected. So if we think only part of the holy fire, only 3 canyons are going to have a debris flow, we can actually issue the warning in that area. Now with cell phone technology, however, there is bleed over, okay? So whenever your phone is on, you're connected to a tower. Connected to a tower. So some of those towers cover more than one area, they overlap and that type of thing. So it's not perfect, but do know that if you are getting the message on your phone, it's a very high possibility that you are in that area where there's a potential debris flow. This is what the Cranston fire looked like. It wasn't the only place we had a debris flow. The Cranston fire produced 5 to 6 feet of mud, debris, rocks, all the way down to Lake Hemet. We also saw it happen this year on the Valley Fire up in San Bernardino. 10 feet of rock and debris crossed Highway 38. 10 feet from a fire. It's the same type of activity that could happen in the Holy Fire Scar. And by the way, the type of rain that the United States Geological Survey and the state of California studying this in the U.S. Forest Service is about a ½ inch of rain. And that is a 1 in 1 year storm. So a ½ inch of rain in 1 hour time, a 1 in 1 year storm. Now, with this upcoming winter, you're going to hear a lot about El Nino and other things. But realistically, a storm that'll cause problems here in Lake Elsinore is probably not on the planet beyond 7 to 10 days. So for me to get up here and say, okay, on February 1st, you're going to have a big storm, there's no way that can be done. Literally, the storm that could give us the heavy rain, the flooding, beyond 10 days is probably not even on this earth, okay? Realistically, we can probably target 7 to 10 days in advance. And then working with emergency management, other first responders, we'll hone in as we get closer, 5 days, 4 days, 3 days, 2 days. But I want you to leave this meeting knowing that if there's a flash flood watch, that means we continue to see all the ingredients leading up to it. And then when there's a flash flood warning, that means it's imminent. The heavy rain is occurring, especially on the burn scar, and debris flows are quite likely. And remember, this could be 2 o'clock in the morning. The weather doesn't know any boundaries. It could be Monday morning at 9 a.m. type of thing. And there will be a lot of weather events this winter. Some of them will produce a little bit of rain on one canyon, a little bit on another, a lot on one. And it may become a little bit frustrating because it'll be a little bit of a repeat is what it'll feel like. But trust me, each event will be a little bit different. Each event will have a little bit of challenge. All you need to focus on, is there a watch or is there a warning in effect? The big storms this winter that we do get, we call them atmospheric rivers, are the ones we're going to have to worry about because those are the ones that are going to bring us a lot of rain and the rainfall rate that is concerning. Remember, it's the rainfall rate, the amount of rain that's coming down on the burn scar. It has nothing really to do with, oh, we got 2 inches of rain last week, now we got to get a 1 inch. It's the rainfall rate. On a weather radar, this is the type of storm we need to be concerned about. It's these, just like in the Montecito, it's these small little ribbons of heavy rain embedded in a larger storm. So let's say it rains for 2 days. It might be that one cell that looks like that that causes the debris flow. So it's not the total amount of rain. It's not the duration of the rain. It's not that, oh, this is an atmospheric river. It's the one little element of heavy rain, usually towards the end of the storm, that can really do the damage. So again, I want you to remember the watch. There's a handout in the back if you need to use that as a reminder. And the warning. The watch is, okay, time to invoke my plan, time to get more information. And the warning, the flash flood warning that might pop up on your cell phone is imminent danger, especially if you live downstream of the Holy Fire Scar. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Alex. Next up is our division chief, Chief Jeff Pemberton. Chief Pemberton has been with CAL FIRE for 27 years. He serves as the fire chief for a lot of cities in our area, and he does an amazing job with us. And I sleep very well at night knowing that Chief Pemberton's on duty. So again, here's Chief Jeff Pemberton.
Good evening. Thank you all for taking time in your very, very busy schedules to be out here tonight. But first, I'm going to show you a brief snapshot, and some of you probably saw some of these resources coming into the area when we had that anticipated rainfall about a month ago. And I just want you to be prepared for seeing resources that are not normally seen in the area.
Good morning. This is Captain Fernando Herrera with CAL FIRE and the Riverside County Fire Department. This morning we're here at Lake Elsinore at the Elsinore Storm Stadium, where a lot of resources from the fire department as well as the National Guard are in staging for the Holy Flood incident. In the event that the storm brings any significant rain to the Lake Elsinore and surrounding areas, all these resources that are staged here will be deployed to the areas at risk in order to do search and rescue or to help evacuate citizens that are at risk.
Today we are facilitating the staging of multiple units, 5 strike teams of Type 3s, 6 patrols, 6 National Guard vehicles, multiple units from multiple agencies and multiple jurisdictions. Basically, we're utilizing Parking Lot C for the Lake Elsinore storm as a staging area.
To see whether you're in the risk area of the storm, please go to ripcoready.org/stormready.
That's a really great snapshot of some of the resources that you're going to see when we have those rainfall rates that are up in the higher anticipated rates within the Holy Fire SCAR, and we will be setting up those resources to make sure that we are prepared to respond should we start to have mud and debris flows. We lost a great amount of our local forest during the Holy Fire. Our record for our public safety agencies and everybody in this room that sits at this table has been pretty phenomenal with that, and we couldn't have done that without your help. And with that, I would ask that you would make sure that you are ready. And when I say ready, everybody should have got one of these handouts when they came in the room. That means that you're prepared. You're coming to these community meetings and you're getting informed. Look where to evacuate and how to evacuate. If you need to arrange for transportation, make sure that you have a plan in place. Make a plan for your pet, especially if you have larger animals. When we get to the should go phase, that's the evacuation warnings. The intent is that you're leaving your home at that point should we issue those. We believe that there is an imminent threat coming. Once we get to the must go, those are mandatory evacuation orders. That's where we work with our law enforcement partners, and Captain Ann will get into that more specifically in his presentation. But the communities are protected. They're closed off because of the anticipated rain event and the anticipated risk to life and safety. We ask that you do that before the storm arrives. If water and debris flow begin to start forming and flowing and you haven't got a chance to use your escape route, make sure you get to a point higher than the flow. And lastly, all of our local stations within the Temescal and Lake Elsinore Valley all have sandbags and sand for you to fill at each one of those facilities. Please use that as you have the time to, as I said, get ready and prepare your home and harden it. And when we ask you to go, please, as you've heard from everybody that's got up here, heed the warning. Thank you.
Thanks, Chief Pemberton. Now I'd like to introduce Captain Dan Ann. Dan is a 23-year veteran of the Riverside County Sheriff's Department. He serves as a police chief for the city of Lake Elsinore and the city of Wildemar. So again, Captain Dan Ann.
On behalf of the Riverside County Sheriff Stan Sniff and the entire department, thank you guys for coming out and taking this step and being prepared. I want to thank you for being involved and partnering with all of us for your safety, and I want you to know, you're going to hear this a couple times from me, is your personal safety is our priority. Your personal safety is our priority, okay? So there's a lot of preparation that's gone into all of what you see here from many, many agencies and entities and many teams of people behind all these leaders in order to bring the proper plans for us to help you be safe. And so we've looked at different models, debris flow models. We've talked to scientists. And that preparation doesn't stop with us. It continues with you all. So do your own research. Do what some of my colleagues have suggested. Go to Rivco Ready, register your phones, keep an eye out on the current information, and listen and heed our warnings. I want to talk a little bit about the evacuation zones that we created. Myself and my public safety partners, we took a look at a lot of different things in order to create these zones. We wanted to make them as flexible as possible. We looked at the risk mapping. We've looked at access issues, so it's not just about where you see those polygons on the map. There's been a lot of other considerations put into those evacuation zones so that we can get you in or out as quickly as possible, but mostly when it's safe. And we're continuing to refine those evacuation zones as we get current information. So just know that it doesn't stop with the initial planning. We're constantly doing a lot of this planning behind the scenes. I want to talk a little bit about the get ready, should go, must go on the screen from the perspective of what's happening behind the scenes with the Sheriff's Department, the Police Department. At the get ready phase, 48 to 72 hours and plus, we're monitoring the incoming storm. And we're talking on phone calls, conference calls, sometimes face-to-face during that time as we're honing in the information to figure out where this storm is going and if it's going to hit those affected areas. And then we're preparing for the potential of additional staffing needs. It takes a lot of staff to come in and do what we're going to have to do during evacuation orders, so we're making these plans at this stage. During the should go, we're continuing to monitor the event. We may be putting an evacuation warning. We're establishing that with our partners. We're creating and adjusting hard schedules for potential increased staffing. So at that time, I have to pull staffing from many other agencies, or many other departments within our agency across the county. And we're probably entering into what we call a unified command with the public safety partners. That's fire, CHP, flood control, and the Sheriff's Department in order to continue with these evacuation warnings and orders. During the must-go phase, at this point, we're giving the evacuation orders. They should have been established at this point. Closures, hard closures to streets are being implemented for your safety, and once you leave the area, you're not allowed back in for your safety. We're conducting high-risk door knocks for some of those areas where it is safe for our officers to do so in the community. And we're also conducting additional security patrols, so there's additional teams of officers in your neighborhoods. Depending on the specific event, you can see an increase of anywhere from 50 to 100 staff that I have, or officers that I have on a 24-hour period. So it just depends, but there's a lot of resources being poured in, and that's just from my department, not to mention the countless resources from our other agencies. And then we're going to continue to monitor the event during that time as well. One thing that comes up is potential for looting. Everybody's concerned. They don't want to leave their area because they're worried about their property. And like I said before, it is common for people to take advantage of situations like this, crimes of opportunity, so to speak. But typically we have little to no reports after events like this, quite frankly, because we have such increased patrols in your neighborhood. And again, although we're concerned about your property, for us, your personal safety is our priority. We want you to get out and heed our warnings so that you're physically okay should something occur in your area. And that's what the get ready stage for you all is important for having a plan. So if you have valuables, make sure you know you live in these areas, you lock them up, you have a safe, you have a place to go, you have a plan for your security needs, home security, etc. And alarms, lighting, such like that. So that's where the get ready on your part goes, and then you don't have to worry about those other issues. So our commitment is to get you back in your homes as soon as it's safe. So we need to make sure we're going to assess the weather, make sure we don't have continuing weather. We're going to look at any damage to areas. We're going to assess access issues to make sure it's safe before we lift those orders. We're going to confer with all of our partners in the Unified Command, and we're going to make an informed decision to make sure it's safe when we lift those orders. Our goal really is to get you back in your homes as soon as it's safe and we can get our resources out of there and get on to a normal life for you guys. In closing, I just encourage you to prepare your homes as mentioned. Have a plan, go to Rivco Ready, heed our warnings, and remember we're acting on the best information available with our team of professionals, and we're going to continue to do that through the event. Again, your personal safety is our priority, so please keep that in mind. And on behalf of all the agencies represented here, I want to thank you for taking the time to listen to me, and I will be here after the meeting as well to answer questions. Thank you.
Next up is a presenter who's been a tremendous asset to the city. Mr. Ralph Mesa has 14 years of experience in the emergency management field. He currently is an emergency services coordinator with the County of Riverside, and I'd like to introduce Mr. Ralph Mesa.
So basically, you guys being here, you're being informed. A lot of information that we have with the County of Riverside, EMD, is our Alert RIFCO. Alert RIFCO is our emergency alert warning system that we have that you can actually go online on our Alert RIFCO Ready and register. If you are having issues on internet or whatnot, you can always go to the back. We do have EMD staff who can actually help you fill out the form and get you signed up for Alert RIFCO. Another form that we have out there is your homeowner guide for flood prevention and response. Social media. We do have a letter in the back that you picked up with your pamphlet when you signed up. We have all our Twitter and Facebooks for all the agencies where you can actually be informed as well. Making the kit. Now this is something that you should have at home and possibly even in your car. And not only for just your family, but this is something that you would want to have at work and then also notify your neighbors as well. Putting in your kit is just information like water, food, and as of right now, it's starting to get cold, so have something warm, like your jackets, blankets, and whatnot. Also think about your critters that you have at home, small animals. Medication is something that you would want to put in there as well if you're on a day-to-day. Having a plan. Basically, having a plan for your family at home, a communication plan as well. If you're at work, how are they going to communicate? How are you going to get a hold of your own kids and whatnot? And where are you going to be meeting at? Because obviously when you're at work, the first thing you're going to think about is your family. So you need to know where they're going to book, where they're going to meet at, how are you going to get a hold of them, and who's are they going to contact to get a hold of you. An out-of-state contact is definitely an important key in your plan as well. Like I said, I mentioned the car. Have a go kit or a backpack or whatnot, some supplies in your vehicle. Basically, the way I see it, you're going camping. So just always have that camping gear ready to go, especially now knowing that we have potential mud, debris, flood during these rainstorms. If for whatever reason we do have the mud and debris flow, just you do not want to drive over any type of flood, even if it's a small, if you see the water, turn around, don't drown. Basically try to stay away as much as you can. Getting involved. So RIFCO Ready is something that everyone's actually been preaching and just letting you know. This is where your information is going to come out as far as getting involved with the community and just knowing situation awareness, knowing how to identify those hazards, not only at your home, but within your community as well. EMD has CERT training for the whole community, which is Community Emergency Response Team, and also the City of Lake Elsinore. This information can actually be found in the rifcoradio.org.
Next up is Miss Patty Romo. Patty is the Director of Riverside County Transportation Department. She's responsible for over 2,200 miles of roads in Riverside County and the whole county encompassing 7,300 square miles. And she is a dynamite lady, and we're very happy that she's working on this project with us. So I'd like to introduce Patty Romo.
Good evening. I'd like to take a few minutes to talk to you about road safety. You saw a couple videos that Grant showed when we first kicked off this meeting. One of them showed debris flow flowing across the road, so the road was impassable. The other showed debris flow running on the road. These roads may become flood control channels with debris flow flowing in them. They're fast moving. Okay. The debris flows are fast moving and they're deadly. You saw examples of those in the video. When we go out and we put these road closed signs, you may not see water flowing across the road or on the road. We put them at locations where you can turn around. It could be night, it could be dark, and you can't see them, so if you see a road closed sign, pay attention to them. Don't go through them, don't move them. Had a good example of a storm situation out in the desert a few weeks ago. We had a heavy rain, occurred in the middle of the night. We had put barricades out there, 2 in the morning. Had a gentleman come. He used this road all the time. It was habit. He didn't like those barricades there. He was determined to go down that road. He moved the barricades out of the way, proceeded through, continued driving, picking up speed. What he didn't realize was the bridge was gone. So he ended up down at the bottom of the channel. So this is a good example of if you see a road closed sign, pay attention to it, especially if it's dark outside and you can't see what's behind there. Your safety is our #1 concern. We want you to go home safe to your families, so please pay attention to those signs. You saw the videos that said, get ready, should go, must go. The other thing that I want you to be aware of is if you wait till the last minute, a lot of people can be leaving. We certainly wouldn't want you to get stuck trying to get out and get stuck in congestion, flows coming across the road and you can't get out. So make sure that you leave in advance so that you can get out and be safe. So you don't want to get caught in that. So again, please heed the warnings. If you see a road closed sign, pay attention to it. It may not be right there in front of you, it could be down the road, but those are up to keep you safe and out of harm's way. Thank you for your time.
Next, I'd like to introduce Rick DeSantiago. Rick is our Public Works Superintendent. He also serves as our emergency coordinator for the city. Rick has been with us for 13 years and he does a great job. I also want to introduce the other part of the dynamic duo that does a lot of work in the city's road network, and I see Mr. Dave Nichols here. And so Dave, if you can raise your hand. So Dave and Rick work together very closely. And so I'm going to turn it over to Rick.
Thank you everyone for being here. What I want to start off by saying is the city takes this very seriously. Public Works takes it very seriously. Recently, you've probably seen some K-rails around the city. The city purchased 120-foot concrete K-rails. And those K-rails have been pre-staged already. K-rails are being placed in extreme and high-risk areas, which would be Lincoln Street, Grand Avenue, Gateway Drive, and High Ridge Drive. We also, the city had invested in making sure that the safety of the residents here in Lake Elsinore is a top priority, and the city built a berm at Rice Canyon. Also, we've been putting in a good effort to clean out the storm drains ahead of the storms coming. Also, the road closed barricades will be placed when the mandatory evacuations are issued. And I just want to point out that this is to this particular one because we may be living with this for the next 3 to 5 years until the regrowth of these canyons come back. So you guys are going to have to start getting used to seeing the K-rails. Okay, that's why I'm kind of mentioning that this is a long-term thing that we're going to be going through. This picture is Rice Canyon. This is on the bottom there, you see Rice Canyon Elementary. This is at the end of Lincoln Street and Dale Court. One of the big concerns for us was this is a top priority extreme risk. So this is an overhead view that aerial that shows the blue lines is where the current creek is. And so you'll see that it kind of bends around Rice Canyon Elementary. So what the city did is built a 10 to 15 high foot berm, dirt berm. Now this berm is not permanent, okay? This is made out of dirt, the existing. We basically widened the channel, the creek, to about 60 feet and width to try to capture and handle the volume that may come down from this canyon. Now the other canyons have facilities for flood control. You have Leech Canyon that has a facility, flood control facility, and you also have McVicker as well that has a dam there as well. This is the only one that does not have anything, so the city needed to take measures and try to make sure that the safety of the homes that are right directly on Dale Court and the school children that there at Rice Canyon Elementary, as well as the structures. This is a view from inside the canyon coming out where it opens up, and you can see the berm that was built. Again, it's made out of dirt. It's not a permanent structure. So we don't know the life expectancy of this berm, but we will monitor it and make sure that after every rain, mud and debris flow, that we make sure that it is well maintained. One other thing that, like I said, it's not a permanent structure, so there is no guarantee that the structure will make it through a heavy downpour and mud and debris flow. I don't want to give anybody the expectations that we're building this and this is the fix all the safety for everyone in this community. For that reason, Public Works has installed K-rails as a secondary diversion. We cannot stop the mud and debris, we can divert it. So part of the plan is if something overtops the berm and goes on to Dale Court, then at least the K-rails will capture it and divert it to a different direction. And with that, leave the city website with the Holy Flood. You can get more information as well as Rivco Ready. So thank you.
It's my honor to introduce Dr. Doug Kimberly. Doug is the superintendent of Lake Elsinore School System. He's been here since 2012. So Dr. Kimberly, please.
When the Holy Fire began in August, it created a need for the school district to delay the start of our school year by 1 week, as many of you know. One of the things that delay did was taught us the anxiety that was created, especially in our elementary school age students, with that delay of school. School is a mainstay in their lives. You are also a mainstay in their lives. I would just implore you that really debriefing with our school psychologists, our teachers, and our mental health team, we learned that anxiety needs to come out. One of the ways that can come out is through really good planning. The Rivco Ready site has an opportunity for parents, grandparents, to get with young children and make that plan if there's an evacuation need. To put a kit together allowing youngsters to help with that kit and put something of familiarity in that kit for them so that if there's a need to evacuate, much of that anxiety can be dissipated and they'll be able to work through the episode a lot greater and a lot quicker without the wonder and the worry, because it's quite disrupting for them and a lot of unanswered questions. We've heard a little bit about pets tonight. In the case of a mandatory evacuation, the Elsinore High School farm is open for animals during that evacuation, so it's a place that animals can go and be taken care of and cared for. That's a good thing to know as part of your plan where you can take those animals in the event that you have a need for that. We have 5 schools that are directly affected by the burn scar area. We have Lisenio, Terracotta, where we're out tonight, Rice Canyon, Withrow, and Lakeside High School. Those 5 schools have the opportunity to be affected. And so we've created separate school safety plans because of their proximity to the burn scar areas and or the priorities that they may be subject to debris flow. What we'll do in the event of a mandatory evacuation, as many of you know, is we will close schools. You'll get a notice once the emergency management team that we have comes together. We are in constant communication on a regular basis. Some of you that have children in school or grandchildren in school receive notification before a school day that there's a possible school closure in the event of a storm. At 6 a.m. the next day, this group gets together with other officials from the Emergency Management Services Division and determines what the direction of that storm and or what is the rate of that storm. If the rate of rain of that storm reaches the thresholds that a possible debris flow, we will close schools. 6 a.m. is as early as we can notify, but we'll continue to do that as quickly as we can so that you can make plans and arrangements in that regard. If there's a need for a mandatory evacuation during the school day, our teachers and our support staff are disaster workers. They are legally and morally and ethically responsible for your children and grandchildren while they're at school. They will stay for as long as necessary. Our schools will shelter in place in the event of a mandatory evacuation, and we'll create evacuation centers in conjunction with the Red Cross. We've been working since August with the Red Cross for food storage, water storage, cots and various things to create an evacuation center at the 5 schools that could be affected by debris flow. A parent reunification plan is extremely important. Each of the 5 schools has a slightly different parent reunification plan, and I would suggest that you look on each website individually for that plan. Each principal will post that unification plan based upon the geography of their school. The idea is to try to reunite families as soon as possible. So if we did it in one central location, for example, through the office, you can imagine it would be pretty chaotic. So that will be spread out across the various campuses and then posted on each of those 5 schools' websites for that. We hope that that makes it a little more, certainly more organized and the opportunity for families to reunite to go forward. It will be by alpha at each of the school sites so that those of you that may have children in multiple grade levels at a school site don't have to stand in various lines to reunify. We'll be able to notify the children from the evacuation center in a shelter in place, bring them out and release them. For those of you that are our parents or grandparents or guardians within our district, our online registration, as you know, is now closed. But I would suggest that you, if you need to, increase the opportunity for those people who are authorized to pick up your children from school. Those forms in the front office of each of the school are available. So if you need a neighbor, if you're at work, or if you need a sister or a brother that isn't on the emergency release card now, please take the time to do that so that you can also plan to have greater options should we have to shelter in place during the school day. With that, I'll turn it over to Corona Norco, and we'll go from there. Thank you very much. Doug Kimberly.
I'd like to introduce Mr. Steve Ellis. He is in charge of student safety for Corona Norco Unified School District. Mr. Ellis.
Good evening. Corona Norco School Districts did not have any schools that were directly affected in the red zone. However, we do have one, Todd Academy, that is located extremely close to it. We have developed contingency plans in the event that we do have floods. Our safe school plans reflect what our procedures and policies will be, and in the event that we do have floods, that information will be communicated to our parents and our school community. I want to assure you that at any time that any of our schools, our students, or employees are in danger, we will take the appropriate action immediately. We are in constant communication with everyone that's presented here at this table, all the emergency services, and we get real-time information. That is extremely important. It is time now to develop a plan for all of you folks. I have a daughter that lives up the street that was directly affected by the fires as well, and I know exactly how you feel. I understand the anxiety, the fear, the unknown that lays before us. But this is the time to develop a plan and have a plan in place. And I assure you that the Corona-Norco School District will do everything possible to keep your kids and your family safe at all times. Thank you.
Thank you for being patient. Thank you for being here tonight. That concludes our formal presentations.